You know, we tend to think of nations as having this single, pure identity, something that's always been there. But what if the very soul of a country is actually forged in the fire of conflict and shaped by the hands of its invaders? Today, we're going to look at how two ancient lands, Egypt and England, were literally hammered into their modern forms by the shock of foreign conquest.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Seriously, think about it. What truly creates a national identity? Is it the geography, the piece of land you're born on? Is it the people who have always been there? Or, and this is the interesting part, is it the outsiders who come in, shake everything up, and force a nation to either absorb them or push them out?
So, to dig into this, we're looking at two absolutely fascinating case studies. On one hand, you've got Egypt. The Greek historian Herodotus famously called it the gift of the Nile. I mean, its entire civilization was built around the rhythm of that one single river, a lifeline in the middle of the desert. And then you have England, an island nation, totally defined and defended by the sea that surrounds it. Both started out with these really strong, geographically based identities, but that was all about to change.
All right, so this is where the story really pivots. We're about to see the first great shock waves, those moments when the outside world came crashing in and set off a chain reaction that would change these lands forever.
Now in Egypt, the change wasn't some sudden invasion. It actually started pretty quietly. During the 13th dynasty, a group from the Near East, people we call the Hyksos, they started to settle in the northern city of Avaris, mostly for trade. But over time, their economic influence grew into real political power until, boom, around 1650 BCE, they were the ones ruling Lower Egypt. For the Egyptians down south in Thebes, this was completely unacceptable. A foreign power on their land? No way. And eventually, it would spark a massive war of liberation.
England's story, though, was way different. It was just one wave of upheaval after another. First, the Romans show up in 43 AD, conquer the place, and build up a whole new Romano-British culture. But when the Roman legions pulled out in 407 AD, they left behind a huge power vacuum. And who filled that void? Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons, who didn't just conquer the land, they settled it. And in doing so, they fundamentally changed the culture of the entire island.
And here's the really crucial part. These invaders left something permanent behind. In Egypt, the Hyksos brought new military tech, and this is a big one, the powerful horse-drawn war chariot, something the Egyptians would later master and use to build an empire. Meanwhile, in England, the Anglo-Saxons brought something even more fundamental, their Germanic culture and, get this, a language that would become the very foundation of modern English.
So, the stage is set. But what came next were the pivotal, single conquests that didn't just disrupt these nations, they redefined them completely. It just goes to show you, sometimes one single event really can change everything.
For England, that event is just one number, a date that is burned into its national memory, 1066. Think about it, 1 year, 3 different kings, and 2 massive invasions that would decide the fate of the country for the next 1,000 years.
And you really can't say it better than the sources do. The final invasion of that year, the Norman conquest, it wasn't just another battle. It would, and I'm quoting here, irreversibly change the very fabric and nature of the country. This was it, a total point of no return.
I mean, the Battle of Hastings wasn't just about getting a new king. No. This was a complete and total replacement of the entire old system. The whole Anglo-Saxon nobility wiped out, replaced by a new Norman-French ruling class. The language of the court, of the law, of power, it was now French. England was fundamentally remade, from the top down. Okay, so now let's flip over to Egypt, because its defining moment was the complete opposite. It wasn't about being conquered and remade, it was about the act of unconquering itself. The Theban kings saw the Hyksos as an existential threat, and after some early defeats, it was King Ahose I who launched this relentless military campaign, a war of national reclamation, really, that ended with him kicking the Hyksos out of Egypt for good.
So you have these two massive foundational conflicts, but wow, they leave behind two profoundly different legacies. Let's break down how these experiences created two very, very different national characters.
In England, the result of being conquered over and over was this incredible cultural fusion. The nation became like a tapestry woven together with the threads of its invaders, and you can literally see it and hear it in the English language. It's a total hybrid. You've got Latin from the Romans, Germanic roots from the Anglo-Saxons, some Old Norse from the Vikings, and a huge layer of French from the Normans. England's identity basically became the sum of its conquerors.
Egypt, on the other hand, took the opposite path. The humiliation of being ruled by foreigners didn't lead to some big cultural blend. It triggered a powerful backlash. Egypt's identity shifted. It became a fortress, a powerful empire that was determined to never, ever let outsiders get a foothold in their land again.
And that national trauma is everything. I mean, the source is crystal clear on this. The humiliation of the Hyksos invasion directly led to the creation of Egypt's first professional army, an army of conquest. This wasn't just about defense anymore. It was about projecting power outward. This is what gave birth to Egypt's new kingdom, its great age of empire, all of it driven by one powerful idea: never again.
So that's the ancient history. But how do these totally different responses to invasion, absorbing versus rejecting, how do they still echo into the modern day? Let's take a look at the legacy.
What's so fascinating is that even though Egypt built this massive empire to keep others out, its core cultural identity, the one tied to the Nile, it proved to be incredibly resilient. As the source points out, thousands of years later, the river is still sacred, and people still celebrate the same ancient festivals. That core identity, forged by the land, it just endured. Meanwhile, England's identity is almost impossible to separate from the people who invaded it.
And that brings us right back to where we started. England absorbed its invaders and became this amazing hybrid nation. Egypt rejected its invaders and built a powerful empire to protect a core identity that stayed remarkably intact. Both were forged in conflict, but in completely different ways. And it leaves us with one last really big question. If a nation's identity can be so radically reshaped by its history, what does identity even mean? It suggests that maybe identity isn't some fixed thing in the past, but a story that's constantly being rewritten.